Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sacred Symbols Plus. What is it? A PlayStation, a supplement? I edit the show three times a week, and I have no idea. Anyway, here we are. It's me, Ben, associate producer at LSM, and Micah, coordinator at LSM. How are you, Micah?
I'm good. How have you been?
I've been doing well. It's nice to see you. We talk frequently, but we don't get to see each other very often, so it's nice.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the newest Call of Duty entry, Call of Duty Vanguard. And Micah and I played the game. We've played some COD in the past. And I just thought, Micah, maybe it'd be a good idea, since COD is one of those series where you either play it every year or you play it maybe every 5 years and come back and give it a try. Why don't we give people some background on our COD experience? You want to go first?
Sure thing. So I started with Modern Warfare 3. That was the first one I ever played. I did not think I would get into the multiplayer at all because it was so intimidating. But I really liked the campaign. That's the one that I believe instead of zombies, it had like spec ops. So you were fighting like waves of regular enemies, and then like juggernauts would come through. And I absolutely loved that. I ended up trying the multiplayer just to see what it was all about, and I got hooked on it. And that was the first time I played like a multiplayer game like that, which later got me into Gears and everything. So for me, starting with Modern Warfare 3, I then started playing Call of Duty every year. I've only skipped a couple of them. I skipped Infinite because I really wasn't into like the outer space theme.
Yeah, that was a good one to skip. Yeah.
But otherwise, I've been playing them consistently every year.
Nice. And it's funny because people... I think people often think of you as more of a JRPG or a Western, or I'm sorry, an Eastern gamer somewhat, but you're really into FPS games.
Definitely. I play a lot of multiplayer for sure.
Yeah.
Usually in Call of Duty, I don't always finish the campaigns.
Yeah.
At a certain point, I get bored and I start playing the multiplayer, and usually that's what I'm hooked on for several months. So That is a huge part of like my gaming.
Right. For me, I started out with the very first Call of Duty, and my memory is a little hazy. And unfortunately, during that time period, I don't have trophies or achievements to look back on. But I played most of the first several years, all the way up through the first Modern Warfare 2, and then it gets a little hazy. I started skipping a few years. I got married, had kids, was doing a master's program, all that kind of stuff. So like I skipped a few years there, but then I've pretty much been back on since about 2016. And I'll go through phases where Call of Duty might be the multiplayer of choice for me for an entire year until the next one comes out. And then for whatever reason, I just drop it like a hot rock and I'll like play it, but don't really necessarily dig into it too much. But so for me, I like shooters. I like multiplayer. For me, Modern Warfare especially, but Call of Duty has always been very much like a social experience. So I really like playing with people I know. I can get in there and watch a TV show in the background and play some multiplayer, but for me it's always been very much a social experience. And then the campaigns, of course, I always play through the campaigns. Most of them I've completed, although I get kind of like you where sometimes it's just like, okay, well, this is lackluster. But so that's kind of our Call of Duty experience. And we're probably people who play most years but not all years. I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, I haven't played Battlefield since Battlefield 3. So that is a definite for me, skip most of them. But Call of Duty's consistently the multiplayer game that I pick up.
Yeah. Yeah. Battlefield 3 was the last one I played, but Battlefield Bad Company 2 was the last one I really liked. Yeah, for sure. So we'll start out with some just general Spoilercast talk. David Healy writes in and says, and by the way, you can write in. If you're hearing this, you're already a patron, but just in case you're not somehow, if you sign up on Patreon, you can get access to the shows early. You get access to this show. You can write in and ask questions at certain levels. So make sure you check that out if you're watching this after it goes to free feeds or something like that. David Healy says, "Hi guys, love what you all do. Can I make a suggestion for future pods? Can review discussions be separate pods to Spoilercast? A review doesn't need to have spoilers." I'd like to listen to some of those discussions before I've played them, then listen to follow-up discussions with spoilers after I finish the game. So uh, he mentions that maybe it could be broken up into two parts. I just wanted to say first, for Call of Duty, like, I'm going to spoil it for you right now. The good guys win. That's how the campaign goes. Other than that, for this spoiler cast, there's not probably going to be a whole lot of like campaign spoilers. Maybe we'll talk about some specific uh, sets or parts in the game that are a little different. But for most of our shows, if you're unfamiliar, most of our spoiler casts, and I edit the majority of them, all of them at this point. We pretty much do that. So generally, we'll have some general discussion about the game, and then we'll break into spoiler territory. With this game, it's not necessarily a huge narrative game, but if you are super sensitive to spoilers, you might want to dip out. But it's going to be kind of hard to talk about, the campaign with spoilers, because I mean that really is the spoiler. The Nazis lose and the good guys win. So it's pretty based in historical accuracy. Would you agree with that pretty much?
Yeah, definitely. It certainly is like an imagination,
Yeah,
trip
right,
through World War II, but
right.
the general theme is there that Hitler's going to lose.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Derek Wechter writes in and says, "Hello, beautiful Ben and Mama Micah." I don't know why I'm the beautiful one, but I mean, hey, I'll take it. As someone who has played every single Call of Duty game since COD 4 Modern Warfare, Vanguard felt like one of the weakest links in the series. What do you guys think the developers could do to bring some fresh love to the series? Cheers and be well. So just generally, Micah, how are you feeling about maybe the chat around the industry or your own personal feelings towards this specific game, just in general, as far as how it compares to other entries?
So, in terms of like, firstly, the multiplayer, I'm loving it. I'm
Yeah,
having a great time with the multiplayer. I really enjoy the maps and the pacing, which we might get more in depth to later. But they
yeah,
have this new mechanic of pacing, essentially, where you choose how many players you want in each
right,
like match that you're going into. It completely changes things because a map like Shipment, which is notoriously a small, chaotic map, if you play it on tactical and you suddenly have 4v4, it's a completely different map and it
right,
plays totally differently. So for me, the multiplayer is really fresh and cool, and I enjoy the bigger maps more now because they can have the blitz pacing where there's way more players in it. And normally I would be bored on these like, sniper type maps, but now it's completely revamped. So I already feel like they did pretty well with the multiplayer, at least. The campaign for me overall was a bit lackluster, but I'm never really super into the Call of Duty campaigns. And you and I both talked about zombies. I wasn't feeling it. I,
right.
I felt like they tried to do something different, but it
Yeah,
wasn't for me.
right. And we'll get into each of those sections too, just for people who are worried that we won't talk about them anymore. We'll get into each of those sections a little bit more and talk more specifics as we go on. But yeah, I would generally agree with what you said there. The multiplayer, I was a little surprised with the new pacing mechanic. I really like that because it can change, like you said, it changes how a map feels. You could play it twice in a row and it'd be completely different experiences, not even feel like the same thing. So I thought that was really cool. And I do think that brings some innovation to it. I mean, I'm not sure what that really does as far as the entire game or the reception of it in general. Speaking of the reception, Shouty33 says, "What do you guys think? Why do you guys think that this year's Call of Duty title isn't as hyped as previous entries, Modern Warfare 2019 and Cold War? Is it just that the World War II setting is so bland and uninteresting? Or could this be all attributed to the Activision lawsuit currently happening?" Would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Thanks, Shouty. Micah, so I don't think we can talk about Call of Duty without, we don't have to get into super specifics, but at least talking about like Activision's troubles right now and maybe the public reception towards them. Do you think those things play more of an impact on the reception this game's getting? Or is it that people just aren't excited for a World War II game right now?
From what I've personally seen in, who I follow on Twitter, various places, most of what I am seeing for criticism is that people did not want another World War II game. I was really excited for that because I love the old weapons and everything. So I was stoked that they were going back to World War II. But I saw so many comments and replies when it was announced that people did not want another, old timey war game. I think there is definitely a a group of people who are maybe boycotting the game because of what's surrounding Activision, but I don't feel like that is the overwhelming like majority of people who don't want to play it. I think a lot of people are just sick of this setting that we've seen not just in Call of Duty, but many games.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, obviously, I love the World War II setting. I'm a big history nerd myself, so I really enjoy having those little bit of historical aspects mixed in there. Obviously, there's a lot of dramatization, like you said earlier, but I definitely think that like it's been kind of played out at this point. Maybe
Mhm.
it's so hard to do a good World War II game without just reciting the same old. But and maybe, and we'll get into this a little bit here in a minute, but maybe that's why the campaign felt a little bit lackluster. It was like, okay, well, we get to see these people's stories, but really it's just World War II. Like we don't necessarily know what's going to happen in between, but we kind of know the beginning and the end here, right? So
Exactly.
it was definitely some of that. I know that the sales numbers, some of the early reports, especially out of Europe, were that the game was performing less desirably than they expected, or maybe than in past entries. But I feel like this is still going to be one of the top selling games of the year, and next year probably too. I feel like a ton of people are enjoying it, and like it's COD. It's an industry event. You just play COD when it comes out, right? So I don't know that that's going to hurt them long term, but I do agree there's a lot of mixed sentiments, even from people who are playing it. I know my buddy Brandon was like, he plays every Call of Duty every year, hardcore. That's his game for the year. He'll play narrative stuff in between, but he's playing Call of Duty. And this year he was like, I am not playing it. Well, even he ended up buying
Mhm.
it and playing it because he had friends who wanted to play it with him. So, like, there's still that I don't want to play this year, but then you end up playing it this year. Yeah. So, okay. So I think the Activision stuff definitely could play in. There's probably a small contingent of people there that didn't buy it this year because they want to make a statement, but and vote with your wallet, of course. I mean that's important, but I don't think that's going to affect the industry at large, and I doubt the majority of specifically COD players even have any clue what's going on with Activision. Yeah,
Right. It's not news that I've been like really following. I see it, as it comes up on Twitter and
right,
everything, and there's a new development in the story. But it's one of those things. There's so much happening in the world that what's going on at Activision is really like the bottom,
right,
level of my interest right now. So it just slips my mind. It's something I just don't think about that much.
right. I can certainly understand that. So. All right, so the last question here, just in general, I feel like I'm in the. This is Corey Savas says, "Hey guys, I feel like I'm in the minority by saying Sledgehammer is the best COD developer. World War II is my favorite game in the franchise, and Vanguard is right up there alongside it. How do you think their multiplayer suite and campaign stack up against Treyarch and Infinity Ward? I'm loving the multiplayer and can't put it down. Do you pay much attention to who develops each game each year, or is it just you like the series and you go for it?
Right. I actually, in seeing that question, I went and looked like who makes my favorite ones because my favorite all time is Warfare 3, which I
Hmm.
believe is Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer that like
Yeah,
jointly created that.
I
And
think
then my
Sledgehammer
second,
supported it. Yeah.
yeah, and my second favorite is Black Ops 2. So I
Mhm.
really like all the studios.
Yeah.
In terms of like multiplayer, I've really been thrilled with all of them. Ghosts was the only one I really didn't like the multiplayer, but I loved the campaign.
Right.
So in general, I like all the different devs that make these games. I don't really have a favorite.
Right. I think that Sledgehammer is commonly seen as the weakest. I don't know if it's because their development skills per se are any better or worse than anybody else's, but I know that the style of I think it's specifically the movement style of Infinity Ward, the way that their engine works more specifically, with the way I like to play the game, a lot of sliding and stuff like that, especially in recent entries, really speaks to me more than the other studios. But overall, like if I like the setting of the game, I generally like a Call of Duty game. If I don't like the setting, and the style of guns, the time period, etc., I don't like it. I didn't like a lot of the futuristic stuff,
Mhm.
like you said earlier, but I think that Infinity Ward's probably my personal favorite, and Sledgehammer probably has made my least favorite games. But as far as Call of Duty goes, I like them all. I mean, I haven't consistently found one that I thought was worse than the other.
Yeah, I'm with you on the setting really makes it for me
Hmm.
because like Black Ops 3, for example, wanted to introduce like the abilities, like you have the different
Yeah.
operators and each one is like a special ability. And I was just like, I'm not feeling this. It feels too much like Overwatch, which I like, but
Yeah.
it's just not what I want in Call of Duty. And I don't want a grappling hook and people like zooming around the map. I'm
Right.
like a boots on the ground type person.
Yeah.
So that's part of why I was excited for the World War II theme, only because I knew there wouldn't be futuristic, weird stuff in it. And there wouldn't be people, using jetpacks to get around the map, for example.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's very much like I think that a lot of people were tired of that kind of let's get in the air, run on walls kind of thing. Even to the
Mm-hmm.
extent that when Modern Warfare 19 came out, I mean, they made a big push towards saying this is boots on the ground. This is, this is grounded gameplay. Like everything but saying, hey, we know you hated the more recent Call of Duty games. This isn't like them. So I definitely
Exactly.
think that was an industry wide kind of feeling on that for sure. All right, let's get a little bit into the campaign. We've got some other questions here. Charlie Rudy says, "Hey peeps, so was it just me, or was that campaign complete garbage? I didn't care for a single bit of it. There wasn't even the typical handful of cool or badass moments like in most COD campaigns. I feel like this is a new low, like they didn't even try." Now, Micah, you've already expressed that you like the campaign. Tell Charlie why he's wrong.
I liked it overall. I wasn't crazy about this campaign though. This
Mm-hmm.
maybe would be one of my least favorites, but overall it was okay to play through. I think the variety that they give you by playing each character is sort
Mm-hmm.
of what saved it. If the majority of the campaign focused on the sniper, wasn't her Paulina?
Yeah,
Paulina, I'm
Paulina.
not sure how to say it.
Paulina, yeah.
If like half the game focused on her, I would have stopped playing because it's
Yeah.
just boring at a certain point. I like sniping, but after a while, it's so slow paced. It's so methodical. I'm not a
Right.
stealth games person,
Mm-hmm.
so they do mix it up by having you switch between characters. I hated all the flying missions. Hated
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
I could have done
They were
without
very bad.
that entire section.
Yeah.
And then you're in the jungle and you're stealthy. I hate stealth, but I feel like overall it was a good bit of fun because they mixed it up and kept having you switch characters. So that
Yeah.
redeemed it in a way.
Yeah. I at first, whenever you were playing as the Paulina character, or as Paulina, the fact that there was like a lot of parkour type movement
Mm-hmm.
involved, I was like, oh, this could maybe they're gonna do something cool here. But then it kind of fell flat because it was just like, oh, I like climbed a building. And then now I
Right.
jumped through a window. So that was a little bit like it was cool for a few minutes, but I agree that if that had been the full game, it might not have been for me. Uh, Jake Whitaker, this kind of ties in there, says, I thought the Vanguard campaign serviceable. I think the best part of it was they included all fronts of World War II in unique ways. It felt a bit short. I wouldn't have minded a few more missions. What'd you guys think about the All Fronts campaign, and did they organize it well? So for me, I felt like the having the All Fronts, like it was a little too scattered for me. I think I would have preferred, like I like the what you were saying about the varied gameplay and like moving around and being different characters and stuff like that. But also like I wouldn't have minded focusing down a little bit more on one character. What do you think about the way that they kind of scattershot it? I mean, it is good because it gives a lot of different people the ability to play in different styles. But it also means if you like one of those styles and you don't like the other ones, you're only going to like part of the game.
Right, I'm with you on that. And in terms of the characters, you don't really get to know them because
Yeah.
you are switching between them so much. I feel like the way the game was written, they wanted us to really care about these soldiers and get invested in them, but you spend such a short amount of time with each one, you really don't get to know them. And it's sort of just like it's too much in a way that I could have spent more time with, let's just have two characters, switch off between them, see their
Right.
alternate stories, and we would have actually gotten to know them more. The campaign, I mean, at most is like what, 8 hours maybe,
Yeah,
depending on what difficulty you're playing on.
I think I played it on the middle difficulty and might have taken me 6.5 or so. Yeah,
Hmm.
something like that. Yep, you're right. I agree with that. I mean, not that character switching and perspective switching is anything new to COD, right? Like we've had that for many years, many entries of the game. But just switching back and forth so much between the characters. And honestly, I thought that like it was kind of sad for me. This is a little bit off the topic, but Paulina was like such a cool badass character. But then it's like half of her missions are like, hey, run this document over there. Here's an
Mhm.
objective, hang out with your family. And it's like she's obviously a really cool character who wants to fight and is good at shooting, as long as you're good at shooting as the player. And they were like, well, her mission should be this or that. And I mean, it is disappointing that it was the only female character and that was her thing, but it would have been the same for me as if it was any character that just like, there's such a cool play style here. We've got the little bit of parkour mix up. We've got a little bit of stealth. We've got some sniping. We've got some just run and gun. And yet I got to run to deliver some stuff at a certain point and catch up with a guy who I passed 3 times, but I had to wait for his track to catch up. So that was a little disappointing to me. And I definitely would have liked a few more missions for probably each character, I think. Even if they were going to keep the multi-character thing going. I don't know.
Definitely. I also feel like when you mentioned the different play styles,
Mm-hmm.
for me, some of the stealth, I just felt like they didn't handle it very well.
Yeah.
Paulina's section where you're like in the like abandoned house and you're creeping through it and you have to sneak attack that
Yeah.
guy several
Yeah.
times in a row.
Yeah.
And that was awful
Yeah.
because you could just, it was supposed to be like a horror game,
Right.
but they don't make those
Right.
because you could tell that like he hadn't spawned in the room yet, right? Until you
Right.
get to a certain point, he's not actually there. It's
Right.
not like the checkpoint starts, he's not actually there until you walk by a certain point, then he suddenly is there, and
And he's
it just
behind you and he
wasn't
kills you.
right. It's just
Yeah.
honestly like you guys just aren't good at making this type of gameplay.
Right.
It was a cool thing for them to try out, but that section was just not very fun,
Yeah.
just because the way it was executed.
Right. Yeah, and they did something cool where they tried to use the strengths of Paulina and like let her be running around and sliding around and stuff like that. So that's something they had introduced earlier and they brought it back. But yeah, you're right. With the type of thing it just um wasn't great is all. So
Right, or they had a mechanic where in that section you could start the record player or whatever it was in World War II, whatever those are called. You start the record player to get his attention and like lure him over, but it only works once.
right.
And it's like, well, wait a minute, if this was actually like a survival game, like a
Yeah.
decent horror game, I would
Right.
be able to press that button again and lure him back over. But
Right.
they just are like, no, you used it, it's done.
Right.
And it's
Right.
odd. It's just a not great.
Yeah. Okay, so Alan Hayden says, any thoughts on the campaigns in the last few Call of Duties being so heavily based on real life events? Vanguard even rewrites history in some strange and maybe even offensive ways. They are seemingly devoid of any original creativity. I loved Modern Warfare 2019 and Cold War for the fun factor in the campaigns, though, I must say. So we kind of touched on that a little bit about how it touches on, true events, but also rewrites the history a tad. Do you feel like Call of Duty should stick to more historic events and kind of follow regular timelines, or do you like the more outlet? Like I thought, especially in Black Ops Cold War in the campaign in that one, just the way they kind of mess with your brain a little bit was really fascinating and interesting. What do you think is a good way for them to move in the future?
I like it better when maybe things are inspired by real events, but it is a more original story simply because you don't know what's going to happen. Call of Duty Ghosts is really one of my all-time favorite campaigns. I still wish they would revisit it because the cliffhanger ending still replays in my mind all these years later, and I wonder like what happened. And that was just a really cool story. I enjoyed it a lot, and you didn't know where it was going. So
Yeah.
there's merit in doing some of these real life historical events because they're impactful and they can be cool to play through it yourself and in a very small way experience it. But I agree that I think I'd like to see more original stories.
Yeah.
It can certainly be inspired by real life events. There's just so much going on in the world of these past few decades that you
Right.
could certainly write stories inspired by Somali pirates and different
Yeah.
things without following it, beat for beat.
Right. Yeah, it's a little disheartening. Like it's good because it like there are some people that this is their only context for history, and this is the only way they find out about any history. And maybe some of it's a little twisted, but maybe it inspires them to dig in deeper and find out more about our past. But then there's also the fact that like I want to play a video game. I just want to blow stuff up right now. I don't necessarily need to get a lecture about, not a lecture, but to get a lecture about the history of World War II, etc. So I agree. Yeah, they could change it up a little bit more. I don't mind it being based on the real life events. But if they're going to base it on real life events, they need to make the characters and the story compelling and show a new angle. And I think they try to do that. But I also know that, let's face it, I mean, Activision, all these developers, they know that Call of Duty just isn't meant for people who want a deep lore, heavy
No.
story. Yeah. And I mean,
No,
it's not for me either.
right. And it's always been that, like, for the most part, the campaign would have all the achievements, and that's
Hmm.
how they would try to lure me into playing it, is like,
Right.
okay, you will earn some achievements if you play this, and multiplayer will give you, one achievement,
Right.
usually for like prestiging ones.
Right.
And this year they've, and in some previous years, they've put more achievements in multiplayer. I think
Hmm.
they're realizing just, finally, there's a lot less people that are going to finish the campaign,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and even though they try to revamp it, I don't know if it'll ever be enough to really get
Yeah.
people to sincerely play it all the way through.
This game also had like a lot of development concerns, and um, full transparency, I know some folks over at Sledgehammer. I don't know them like super well. We're not buddies necessarily, but I'm friendly with them, and I just know some of the struggles they went through and how this game was supposed to come out a few years ago, and then there's some talk that maybe it even got rebooted and stuff like that. And I wonder if they were just trying to find that right balance of making the multiplayer good while also making the story compelling, because there was a lot of backlash a few years ago when they said they weren't going to put a campaign in one of the COD games, and then
Hmm.
they were like, look, like 4% of you finished the campaign, we're not going to spend all this money. But then they did it anyway, and I guess it's up for the individual players to decide if it was worth the extra dev time and money and everything spent to make those campaigns. So, let's see, what's the next question here? Poot says Benatello and Micah Angelo. I like that one. Uh, as someone who's interested in the COD campaigns but doesn't want to pay full price for the game, what would you say is a fair price for just the campaign? Thanks, and don't spill your beans. It's good advice. I'll always take that advice, not to spill your beans. Do you
Definitely.
think? Do you think this campaign is worth? What do you think this campaign's worth? Is it worth paying money if you're not going to play multiplayer?
I'd say if you like the COD campaigns every year, you will probably like this one so
Hmm.
long as you enjoy the World War II setting. There's a lot of cool weapons. There are some cool
Yeah.
moments. I like the campaign overall. I definitely say if you're not going to play multiplayer, I wouldn't pay more than $30 for
Yeah.
this. Like, definitely wait for a sale. I mean, the price will drop eventually because it is a yearly game. I
Right.
wouldn't pay more than $30. As you mentioned, the campaign, we're looking at 6.5 hours. Like, for me, it took a little bit longer because I was bad at the sniping portions. So, and the stealth. So I replayed
Yeah.
those sections a couple times. I was closer to like 8 hours to
Yeah.
beat the game.
Yeah.
So that's, sort of put it in your own perspective. Are you going to play it once and be done with it? Are you going to play it on veteran, get some more
Right.
time out of it? I wouldn't pay more than, $20, $30 though, if that was all I was going to play.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think, I'm not someone, and I don't think almost anybody on the LSM team is somebody who says that like a game's length is directly correlated to its value.
Mhm.
Um, but when the game is good at best, maybe a little mediocre for some people, and if you're looking for like a real driving narrative, for a game that has a 6-hour story and the gameplay is there and the narrative is just superb, I'll gladly pay a full price for that game. For this one, I agree. I'm not sure that more than 20 bucks, if you're just going to play the campaign, it's probably worth it for me. But of course, everybody's budget's a little different. Everybody's situation's a little different. So take that with however you will. Vanoran says, hello, Micah and Ben. I feel like I'm in the minority. However, I play COD for their campaigns, not their multiplayers. Some stand out, but for me, COD is the fast food of FPS campaigns. It's not the best you can get, but it fills you up. After playing Vanguard on hardened difficulty, I must say I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I absolutely love the final mission and switching between the character roles and the utilization of each one's strengths. How does this year's campaign rank for you two, and what are your personal rankings of the campaigns? Understandably, COD isn't fresh for the gaming community, and the hoopla around Activision, plus a negative look on this game as well. Regardless, I thought this was a great game that came out in a very lackluster year of remasters and catching up on the back catalog, especially for those without a PS5 or Xbox. So, Micah, how does this campaign rank for you? I know that you don't always play them, you don't always finish them. Same for me. I've finished the last 5 or 6, but not necessarily all of them in the past. Um, how's the campaign rank for you, and whatever kind of ranking system you wanna use for that?
Yeah, one thing I'll say is that at no point in this campaign did I feel completely lost and I don't
Hmm.
know what's going on because they're only speaking military talk and I'm
Hmm.
very confused because I'll say that happens in some of the Call of Duty games and I play them regardless because it's fun, show up at the objective and you shoot things. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
But even some of my favorites like Black Ops 2, that campaign was weird and it didn't make a lot of sense and I remember at one point just saying, I don't know what's going on. I'm having fun, but I have
Yeah.
no idea where this story is going. So, in terms of actually just not feeling confused and having fun, I'd rank this pretty highly. My all time favorite, Modern Warfare 3. Behind that, I would put probably Black Ops 2, maybe Black Ops 1, and
Yeah.
then maybe this one. I mean, they're they're all good in their own ways,
Right.
but they're Call of Duty campaigns.
Right.
Um, they're not they're not The Last of Us. They're not The Order 1886. They're
Yeah.
just they're fun to play through, but the multiplayer is always going to be the anchor and why I buy the games. Honestly,
Right. Right. I agree completely. Not necessarily with the rankings. I probably have a good bit of recency bias, but Black Ops Cold War is probably my favorite COD campaign in many years.
Mhm.
And a lot of that has to do not necessarily that it was, you know, it didn't wow me or anything, but just some of the, and I won't go into it, but just some of the things in the end of that game, some of the twists and turns that took you on, were just, I felt like they were pretty innovative, and I've been pretty scathing. I mean, I've loved Call of Duty, but I've been pretty scathing of many of the campaigns over the years, and part of that is because I know they're tacked on, but that's probably my favorite in recent memory. If we go back into the early Black Ops days, I can't remember them very well, so it's hard for me to rank them because at a certain point they just all kind of blend together.
Yeah.
But I would say if I was going to rank this one, it wouldn't be near the top of my list. I mean, it wasn't exactly um, a narrative wonder or anything, but it was fun. That's what I'm looking for in a COD game. I'm just looking for some fun. Okay, so we've done enough. Oh no, one more question just about the campaign here, real quick. A little bit different angle. Timothy Bryant says, just wanted to know if the style of the story worked this time around for you. I typically don't like the interrogation stories where everything is technically a flashback unless it's done incredibly well, like Persona 5 was able to do. Do you believe it worked for you, or would you have preferred a more linear story with no in media res or flashbacks? Um, Micah, do you like this is more just in general gaming, not necessarily COD, but how do you feel about hey, we're going to tell you a story, but we're going to tell you a story in the midst of other stories? Do you like that mechanic? Do you think it works well, or do you think it takes away too much from the main storyline?
So I like it for some games, as the listener mentioned Persona 5,
Hmm.
excellent. That's a really great example of how to utilize that style of storytelling. The thing for me with Call of Duty, throughout the whole campaign, you're essentially being held in a
Hmm.
cell, and then
Yeah,
they are
yeah,
going back and telling you how you got here,
right.
kind of. And so I was kind of bored with that in the way of I was just like, okay, at what point are we going to break out of here? When do we get out? And then that's when the rest of the story is going to happen. And really, the majority of the game is in the flashbacks,
Hmm.
and it just wasn't as engaging because as we kind of talked about what they're trying to do in those flashbacks is
Hmm.
character development and get you to really be invested in who these people are, but you
Yeah,
spend such a short amount of time with them. They're also pretty cliched. The pilot character is just a walking cliche.
yeah.
The whole time I couldn't wait for him to just get off the screen. And so it's one of those, if you have a character you don't really like, they don't stick around very long. But if you have one that you do like, Paulina, we don't get to spend a
Hmm.
lot of time with them because of all the switching back and forth. I like what they tried, though. I sincerely respect that they took this level of care with a Call of Duty campaign. I think they can build on this and make a better one next time around because they tried a lot of new things, and I respect that for sure, the direction they took and what they tried to do.
Yeah, I agree. There were parts in the non-flashback, so in the present, I guess you would say, they were kind of interesting. It was cool to be able to see the dynamics between the different characters, but it was very shallow. And then
Mhm.
just the constant flashing back and forth, it was like, well, we don't really care about how these stories actually went. We just want you to get to play in different play styles and think they're cool. So I don't necessarily like that as a mechanic for this game because it was how it was done. But I agree. I think those are good and valid storytelling methods to be able to go back to uncover someone's history. My biggest problem was that was almost the entire game. Was just we're in
Mhm.
a cell. We're going to throw you back to where this person started, and then maybe you'll like them more when you come back and see them in this room confronting other people. So it fell a little flat for me, but I think you're right. They could have done a little bit better. Speaking of doing a little bit better, Lockmort writes in and says Bika. Now I have to stop here. Bika. I mean, that's just Micah's name with a B. It could at least be Becca. That's a real name. It has still has 3 letters of Micah's name. It has 2 letters of mine. Like, what more can you ask for here, Lock? Anyway, what does Call of Duty need to do to make their campaigns feel fresh again? I feel like they were on the right track with the new Modern Warfare, but then immediately switched gears back to their old campaign structure. What would your ideal Call of Duty campaign look like? What about you, Micah? We've talked on and off about this, but and we tear down Call of Duty's campaigns. We know they're not meant for the majority of players, but it's not really fair to offer a lot of criticism without a lot of help. So, what do you think? What would make you fall in love with a Call of Duty campaign?
Yeah, I think it's just about giving us what we want, which is hardly any story,
Hmm.
and just keep shuttling me through to places where I then get to shoot at things. And
Yeah,
that's my ideal Call of Duties is even the ones where it's all like military talk and I'm lost as to why we're doing this.
right,
It's still usually the most fun because they're like, "All right, get out there," and then you just shoot at stuff.
right.
And we're not trying to, fall in love with the characters. We're here, we're a random soldier. I like that. I'm honestly fine with a very bare bones story
Hmm.
because at least it's not trying too hard. It's
Right.
like the reason I'm here is to shoot at things. It's not Spec Ops the Line. I'm not here for your fantastic story. I'm here for the great mechanics. Call of Duty has excellent mechanics. The gunplay is phenomenal and
Hmm.
best in class for a lot of reasons. So
Right.
if they realize, why I'm here, it's not for a great story. If they want to write better stories, I think honestly they'll really need to invest in that and really dig deep and say like who can we hire to tell the narrative we want to, but they're also going to have to say can we tell a longer story? Do they
Hmm.
want to invest in a longer campaign to tell a better story because this game could have been really great. I'd be with you to say that if we had all the flashback section and then a longer section of like present gameplay, if
Right.
we honestly had like a 15-hour game and you play half in the past and the other half's in the present,
Yeah.
but what you do in the present is it's a snap and then the game's over.
Yeah.
And I felt like I would have actually played more if they continued the story.
I think I agree almost entirely. I think for me, what I would like to do, like to try, is a Call of Duty campaign that you follow a single character and all of the storyline, narrative, etc., is in cutscenes. One of my favorite parts about Call of Duty is how fluid it is, how fast it is, how good the gunplay is, like you mentioned. But when you have like constant story beats interrupting, or hey, you got to try out the sniper rifle, or hey, use this ballistic missile to target tanks coming in across the desert, those kind of things interrupt the things I love about Call of Duty. So just give me all the story in a cutscene, and then in the cutscene with me like going into the character's first person and then running forward and just fighting until the next cutscene. I don't want to stop and have to interact with this with X, and I don't want to have to run over and pick up a new gun specifically to target a certain type of enemy. I agree. It's just give me more of what I want from Call of Duty. Just let me get in there and shoot things. And if you want to tell me a story, do it in a way that doesn't interfere with the thing I actually like about Call of Duty, which is shooting things. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll also say this campaign, some of the cutscenes were too long.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at my watch thinking it's been 5 minutes and I've just been sitting here.
Yeah.
It's because it's not Persona 5, it's not Spec Ops. The story is not of the caliber to keep me sitting for 5 minutes just
Yeah.
watching it unfold.
Right.
So I'm with you that like if we can take it up a couple notches, I'll sit and watch a good story
Right.
unfold.
Right.
But this one just really wasn't there.
Right. One thing that nobody really asked about, but something you said there reminded me of it. There's the part, I can't even remember which character you're playing as, but you're in a building and you're running after this guy, and it's a specific type of enemy, and every time you get close, like you could nail every shot in the head, but it doesn't matter because he's going to throw a smoke bomb and slow you down, and then he's going to disappear and run away. I felt
Yes.
like that mechanic specifically was so not what Call of Duty is, because it doesn't matter how good I'm playing, it doesn't matter what's happening, it's going to interrupt my gameplay for long enough to introduce this cool new mechanic of this enemy that can sneak away from you. But it didn't really add anything for me. It just took it away.
Oh,
I don't know if you
totally.
know the part I'm talking about.
And well, it's not just that. I felt the same way in it's the section where Paulina and her brother are in the open field.
Yeah.
And so they bring out the mechanic where her brother can distract the sniper. He has like a
Right.
knife to, glint and
Yeah.
distract them. If you don't use it, the
Yeah.
other snipers will not stop firing until you use the distraction. Because I
Yeah.
didn't want to use it because I was like, this is hokey. I'm not going to do
Right.
it. And it is impossible to do that section without the brother helping you. You have to use him as the distraction, otherwise they just never stop firing.
Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't how it should play. I should be able to attack this from a few angles and
Right.
use this mechanic if I want to, not be forced into using this weird mechanic where I have to keep asking him for help. Yeah, I
Right.
did like that. And I felt the same way about other sections, the way they force you to use the character's, special ability. It was the
Mhm.
same thing.
Yeah, I think as soon as that mechanic was introduced, I was just like, okay, and I hit whatever button it was, because I just follow blindly what people tell me to do, I guess. But I just, as soon as they introduced it, I was like, okay, I guess I have to do this, because it's just, how Call of Duty campaigns are going to work. But I'm glad I did, I guess, because I would have been even more frustrated that that mechanic was essential to your gameplay. But I just felt like that whole section was kind of, yeah, some of the decisions they made that interrupt gameplay. I think that's what it really comes back to for both of us, is things that interrupt gameplay that make you play a different way than you want to play Call of Duty just suck, frankly. I mean, just
Yeah.
they're just not good. Okay, let's get into the multiplayer, which is, I know, is where your bread and butter is, and that's where I've traditionally lived with Call of Duty as well. I just feel like so few people talk about the campaigns that we owed a little bit to the listeners to talk about the campaign a little bit more. Nick Lacrita says, hello, squad. As someone who loved Modern Warfare 2 2019's multiplayer, I'm really digging Vanguard. The addition of 20 plus maps at launch has really helped to keep things fresh compared to prior releases. Has multiplayer done enough for you to stay consistently interested throughout this year's life cycle? This one I want to mostly let you talk about, because this, like I said, this is your bread and butter. How are you feeling about the multiplayer just in general? The fact that we got 20 plus maps out of the gate is amazing. What are your feelings right now on multiplayer?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I played multiplayer for like an hour and said, I'm hooked on this.
Mm-hmm.
My initial reaction when I booted up the game and I saw like the pacing options, I said, what have they done? I don't like it. I immediately just
Yeah.
had like a boomer moment. Like, I don't like it. It's new.
Yeah.
And then I ended up playing it. And of course, I realized how it really affects the gameplay in a way that I like. And so I didn't choose, one of the options. I just have it on variety.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to play, various modes. I like domination, kill confirmed. I team deathmatch. So I play, through those hardpoint. And I like the way that the pacing affects the gameplay. When you
Mm-hmm.
have, like domination on Blitz, it is just so much more hectic,
Yeah.
and it keeps, kids from sniping and things like that, which just really slow it down. Like
Mm-hmm.
nothing against it, it just really slows down the gameplay. And for me, more fast paced the better, which is why I'm always in the shipment 24/7 playlist.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm super enjoying the multiplayer. I really like the weapons that are in here. The maps are great. Maybe too many maps for me, only because I have some favorites that I feel like I hardly ever see.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you have to play for hours sometimes to get back to the map you want.
Or if
And
you do get back to that map, you don't get to play the mode you wanted to play on that map.
exactly, because I keep it on sort of like the party section
Hmm.
of, yeah, I'm searching for these 4 modes,
Right,
not just searching for one at a time.
right,
So it's like, oh, I really wanted this map, but not for kill confirmed, which is like my bottom, choice, but I put it in there for variety's sake.
right.
So I feel like I'm happy that the maps are great so far. Great variety of sizes of maps too. And the pacing options make it feel like even more maps, really.
Right.
But maybe too many for me and my old brain because I have trouble remembering them all and the different lines of sight. I'm still learning on some of these maps where I can sit for a second, where I need to look both ways before crossing the street. But overall, the experience has been fantastic.
And they're running this on an engine that I like the movement style of. I really like the ability to. I like the slide mechanics so much. I feel like I use it probably too much. Honestly, it gets me killed half the time. But I really am liking that. I think that the variety of different places you can be on the maps, as far as how many different maps there are, is really nice. I agree. I would like to see some more narrowed down playlists, but I have to imagine the reason they don't do that, this is just speculation on my part, is because they know that, let's say that everybody hates Kill Confirmed, which I actually like it, but a lot of people hate Kill Confirmed, and so they're never going to play Kill Confirmed. So then the people who want to play Kill Confirmed aren't going to get matches as quickly. So I understand why they do it, but I agree that having a little bit more drilled down kind of approach to things would be nice. It's that's always the case with multiplayer with different maps and different modes, is that you're going to have to play some that aren't your favorite, and you're going to have to play some that you're going to get to play some that you really really like. uh, I think that everything about the multiplayer I'm enjoying. I'm not loving any single part of it more than another. I think it really does come down with all Call of Duty multiplayers, is just when the movement's there and I like the guns. It doesn't matter which guns they are, they're all gonna play well. Their gunplay mechanics have always been good, but the guns themselves have to feel right. They have to fire right, and the the way that you position yourself on the map has to feel right, and you need to have nowhere where somebody can just sit up and camp. Although I mean, it's a valid play style, I suppose, but I want to be able to camp, but know that I'm in danger. And then on the flip side, I want to know that if someone's camping, I'm going to be able to get to them, even if it takes me 2 or 3 tries. So
Yeah,
I
for
feel like
sure.
they've done a good job. Uh, Probably one of the best multiplayer opening out of the gate offerings that they've had in a long time, probably.
Yeah, and spawning still sucks.
Yes, of
They
course.
will never fix spawning, I don't think. I still will have people just enemies just spawn
Hmm.
right in front of me and it's like I'm
Yep.
sorry as I kill them.
Right.
But then it happens to me, I spawn right next to someone.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll ever get that completely right, but
No.
I think it's an improvement
Yeah.
over past years for sure.
Have you seen? You would. I'm sure you've seen it, knowing how many memes you filter through in your day. But uh, the picture of it says spawning in shipment, and it just has a guy with a pistol and another guy's butt crack. Like it's just like that's how you spawn in most of
Yeah.
Call of Duty. It's just like you're there, and somebody has probably already got line of sight on you, and is probably going to kill you before you can move 3 feet. So there definitely seems to be some improvement. There's some maps though where it's like, I know I'm gonna spawn, especially if you're playing on one of the more hectic modes. I'm gonna spawn within 30 seconds or within 3 seconds and get totally obliterated, and then the next time I'm gonna have to run for 90 years before I even see an enemy that I'm able to shoot at, let alone kill. So
Yeah.
if they'll keep working on it, I'm sure I get better at it over time. Aaron Chisholm writes in and says, "Hey guys, do you think the multiplayer mode War from 2017 COD World War II is missed? I absolutely love the strategic objectives with the opposite team defending. I wish Sledgehammer brought this back. It's such a fantastic mode. Thanks, guys. Have a great day." Did you play Modern Warfare 2? I think you said earlier you did. I can't remember.
Well, but did he mean World War II? Like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
yeah.
I played that one.
Do you remember that multiplayer mode?
I didn't play it because I didn't like it.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. I had to go back and look at it and looked it up. I wanted to give this question airtime because I didn't remember it at all. It didn't strike a chord in my mind, and I went and looked at it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I played this like nonstop when I played World War II. So with that said, I think the bigger point here is that like I think I enjoyed it. obviously I played a lot of it, but there's a reason they didn't bring it back. Now I don't know what that reason is. Clearly, it wasn't memorable. It's very objective based. It's kind of like mixing a lot of the different gameplay styles into one map, and then you have to complete each one in kind of a separate or a different order and defend against them, of course, as well. And I think they flipped you were the attacker, and then you automatically became the defender, kind of in the same match. So it was cool in that respect. But I thought that was a great mode, and I never would have thought of it again had Aaron not brought it up. But for me, I think that's a cool mechanic. That was a cool mode to bring back in. I just wonder if it didn't get a lot of playtime or something, because they clearly are good at making money and they know what modes bring people back in. Speaking of modes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, for me, it was just too much. It's the reason, like, I don't play Battlefield online because it's too much. The maps are huge. You have way too much choice in who you're playing as and the different kind of options you have. For me, it was just too much. It didn't feel like Call of Duty.
Right. There's a mode in Vanguard called Champion Hill. Have you played that at all yet?
I have not.
Okay, so basically Champion Hill, I was surprised because I was like, oh, this is something I've never played before, and I went into it, and it's really cool and really dumb at the same time. So it's a 8 teams, I think it is, are basically in a match, and it's a round robin. You start out the match and you get to go and buy different things. So you can buy, weapon upgrades, you can buy throwable upgrades, you can buy different armor, etc. And then you go, and each round you face a different team. And it's a round robin, I think it's double elimination. Maybe it's more than that. I haven't played it in a couple weeks, so I can't remember for sure. And basically, it's just kind of like whichever team comes out on top at the end wins. And it's based on, of course, you have so many lives that kind of last you throughout the entire time you're playing it. And so I thought that was a cool new mode to introduce. But I just feel like every time I try to play it, I can't get a match. I can't get the matchmaking isn't there. So I don't know if people aren't playing it or what. But that's one of those things. It's unless I'm forgetting, it's a newer gameplay style. It's a newer mode that there is out there, and it varies up that gameplay enough that it's almost like, oh man, I'm forgetting the other mode. Gun game? No, not gun game.
Well, that's like one of my favorites.
Gun game is great. I love gun game, but it's like I can't remember the name of it, but basically you spawn in and it's 3v3s and close quarters typically. It's very similar to that, except it's a round robin. On the downside, if somebody is just if they're just amazing at the game, you're out in one round and you lost all your lives and everything like that. So that kind of sucks, but it is a cool mode. And that's one of the things that I'd like to see them, maybe push more, is just, that's a good one. Are there others like that we haven't seen before that they could bring in with, these buying mechanics? I really like the fact that even if you're on your last life, you can bulk up on armor. If you've collected enough money, you can buy a whole bunch of new weapon attachments, etc., and just really get out there. It's definitely different than the traditional objective-based kind of thing that seemingly no one who plays Call of Duty knows how to play objective, but it's a lot of fun, I think. So give it a shot, at least one match of it, and see how you like it. I think it's
I'll try that out.
Yeah. Okay, our favorite part. We got a couple questions about zombies. We can't not finish this without talking about zombies. As a matter of fact, you had suggested at one point that we do a let's play or something similar of zombies, maybe a stream together or something like that of playing zombies. And we both played it and we were like, no, this isn't it. So Jeffrey writes in and says, haven't seen anyone mention zombies yet, so I'll be the guy. As a diehard COD Zombies fan since 2009, I am severely disappointed in this year's offerings. While it makes sense what led to this, Sledgehammer literally had to call in Treyarch to help them out, while Treyarch was making DLC maps for Cold War, it doesn't take the sting away. I can wax poetic on the issues with zombies this year, but I'm curious what y'all's experience has been and what your history with the mode is. Have either of you completed an Easter egg? Do you miss Easter eggs? Do you like the hyper-simplistic nature of Vanguard zombies? So I figured you were the first to express your disappointment with zombies, and I know that you've loved zombies in the past. So tell me why zombies is not it this year.
I just don't get it. As soon as I booted it up, I was expecting the normal zombies. Here comes wave 1, wave 2, and it's like you choose a weird objective and you survive for like a couple of minutes and then put you back in the main square and you pick another one. And I really was just like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I played for like a good half hour and it wasn't getting more difficult. And I just, I was like, wait a minute. Usually by now I'd be like yelling and that's the part of the fun of zombies, we're going
Right.
nuts. And it doesn't get hectic, it doesn't get very chaotic.
Yeah.
It feels way too easy.
Yeah.
I honestly just don't understand what the mini objectives are for. And
Right.
I also couldn't really find an explanation like in game, tell
Right.
me what's going on. And the game really doesn't tell you what's happening.
I feel like that is a deficiency historically with zombies modes, even the ones I've liked, where it's just like you got to figure it out yourself. What's going on
Yeah.
here? You got to get to the Easter eggs. You gotta figure out the story of the zombies map. But it seems like with this zombies map, like there's not even a dedicated map for zombies, if I'm remembering correctly. It's kind of all on the other maps. But basically, the different modes, the different objectives you were mentioning, it's all like there's one that's just literally domination. It's just with zombies,
Hmm.
and you just have different things like that. And while I can appreciate that, and I like the fact that they're incorporating some other objectives besides just getting through the waves, I play zombies for the wave based combat. I
Exactly.
want to upgrade my gun. I want to find the Easter eggs. I want to get attacked by a bunch of different varieties of zombies. I want to have that hectic, oh no, I'm going to die. They're going to eat my face kind of strategy that's going on in most zombies. And this one, with them adding those objectives in, while I appreciate that they tried to change up the gameplay a little bit, it's just not zombies. It's Call of Duty multiplayer with AI enemies. And so for
Hmm.
me, it just didn't hit the spot. And I spent dozens, if not 100 hours in zombies, even from Cold War, not Cold War, yeah, whichever the last one that had zombies was. I spent a lot of time in it. I'm getting them all mixed. That's the problem with these games that are every year. I get them all mixed up all the time.
Well,
But I spent a
exactly,
lot of
because
time.
I'm trying to remember which one had extinction, the
Hmm.
one that had like the aliens essentially
Yeah,
instead of zombies. I loved that one. I
yeah,
cannot remember which Call of Duty that was attached to, but
right,
I loved that mode. It was great. I just want waves of enemies.
right,
That's really I wanted something very simplistic and I was just disappointed that it's not what we got because you're right. I already play domination. I don't
right,
want to play it here with AI. I just want the waves of enemies. It's,
right,
Gears of War has Horde. I
yeah,
love that mode. And they also kind of ruined that the past few years, but
yeah,
it's just not what I wanted out of a zombies mode.
right. I feel like just everything about it. I mean, you can upgrade, you can buy health, you can buy ammo, all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't ever feel right when there's so many different objectives. And maybe, hey, maybe Mike and I are being short sighted. Maybe other people out there love the fact that there's objectives. But it goes back to that thing we just keep saying is I want a Call of Duty game.
Hmm.
I want, I'm being a little bit dissonant with myself in that like I want new gameplay types. I want to experiment. I want to see what's out there. But like when you have something that works and you know why people like it. Oh, for example, in Black Ops and in Cold War, they I'm so bad with remembering names and things like that, but they did the mode where it was similar. It was open, almost open world, and they had different objectives, but they were like, defeat this dragon
Hmm.
objectives, and you still had all the zombies running around, and it was a huge map, and then you moved on to the next one. Like those kinds of things I like because it's still the core gameplay of just killing a bunch of zombies and upgrading stuff. It's not domination with zombies. So
Exactly.
yeah, it just didn't hit the spot for me. Maybe I'll give it another chance, especially if I have some buddies who are willing to hop into it. Um, but for me, it's just like, okay, I tried this a couple times. I'm just going to play what I know I like if I'm going to play it at all. Um,
Definitely.
we had a couple more questions that didn't really fall into anything specifically. One, Cameron wrote in about Warzone, and Warzone's so huge, I didn't want to not address it at all. Micah, you've not played Warzone at all, or just not very much?
I have not played it at all.
Okay,
That's like a battle royale? Is that
yeah,
what it
it's
is?
the battle royale
Okay.
mode. I played Warzone from the time it came out, and at the time I was playing with my buddy every day for months, probably. Uh, you know, Stay up till 4 a.m. kind of thing, even though I should have gone to bed at midnight. Um, and just I loved it. I got to the point where there were so many hackers, I just couldn't do it anymore. Because I went from getting like 20 kills and winning a match to getting sniped from across the map, literally
Hmm.
across the map. It just wasn't for me anymore. I know they've done some work on that, but So we don't really have a lot to say about Warzone, and a lot of the questions that Cameron asked are about the new modes in Warzone, which I have not kept up on. I know they're doing something big and new this week or next week, I think, with Warzone. I just wanted to put it out there that um, we don't really have a lot to say about Warzone, even though there is a lot of Vanguard integration there. So putting that out there. And then here's an interesting question that I hadn't thought about, and I would probably guess that you haven't either, just because you typically play on your own console alone. Joe Palmer says, "Hello, my lovelies." We're lovelies now. Earlier we were beautiful, and now we're lovelies. I like it. I know I'm most likely the only one who's going to bring this up, and that's kind of my point, but we need to discuss split screen. This is the only way I play COD multiplayer anymore because I only play with my son. He is developmentally disabled, but for some reason, COD is one of the only games that just seems to jive with him. He's actually pretty good at it. So you can imagine my disappointment when Cold War came out and the split screen mode was literally unplayable and remained in that broke ass state until only a few months ago. Also, for reasons known only to the game gods, Modern Warfare got stuck in an eternal download loop about the same time Cold War launched. That is a unique problem, probably, but that sucks. So I haven't been able to play with my son for nearly a year. Anyway, all this to say that despite the bad press, Vanguard hit the spot. But to my larger point, is split screen going away? Am I the only one who uses it? It works fine in Vanguard, but it always just seems kind of tacked on. Now, I haven't played split screen in probably a decade. It's just not been I haven't needed to since online became a thing and everything. Have you had any experience in recent years, at least, with split screen?
Oh, for sure. So I was a huge couch co-op gamer
Okay.
with like my previous roommates.
Uh-huh.
So we were always looking for couch co-op games, and we would often lament how few of them there were as the years kept going on.
Yeah.
And typically we would play zombies like split screen together, where we're playing Gears Horde split screen together. The lament if a game only had vertical split screen. That was
Right.
the case in Borderlands, actually.
I
The
remember
original
that.
Borderlands, the first time I played it, I was going to play it with my roommate the whole way through, and we could not get past that vertical split screen.
Mhm.
And I ended up just playing it by myself. So I'm someone who really loves split screen. Certainly, though, Colin and I don't play games together like that because I play everything on Xbox for the most
Right.
part. He's a PlayStation gamer.
Mhm.
He also really doesn't do much with multiplayer in the first place, so it's not really his wheelhouse. Currently, then, I don't have much use for split screen, but I do look for it, and I'm happy to see when it's there. I also notice in the multiplayer matches when someone has, the parentheses and the one next to their name, and I'm like, they're playing split screen. I know that these are two kids right now sharing a
Yep.
TV,
Yep.
and it makes me happy to see people using it because I hope that as long as people keep utilizing the feature, it'll be there for people that do need it and still want it.
Right. I definitely agree with the fact that I used to do a lot of it, and I remember seeing that one next to someone's name and thinking like they should be an easy kill because they only have half a screen right now. Uh, but that's a good point. I mean, yeah, there are so few games that do it now, and the ones that do don't do it terribly well. And it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, just play on your own screen. That's fine. But things like this make me think about like he has a son, and first of all, a lot of families aren't going to buy multiple consoles, especially if they only have one television, or maybe that's just not the way they do things. But especially, for in this instance where his son is developmentally disabled and is not going to play most games that are out there, but can really play this one and likes it. Is split screen gonna go away entirely at some point? Are we seeing, this is less about Call of Duty and more about the industry, but are we seeing split screen as a concept just kind of be done? Is it going to be gone?
Yeah, I'm unsure because as we've seen some of these games that are like designed to be
Hmm.
couch co-op, but even some of those games you're not playing split screen, you're sharing your
Right.
screen.
Right.
Something like Overcooked,
Yeah.
you're designed to share that one landscape. So
Hmm.
like yes, these are couch co-op games, but they are not split screen couch co-op games.
Right.
So, and we've seen more of that as I'm glad to see couch co-op is still alive and well,
Right.
but we are sort of moving away from the original structure of what they were doing.
Right.
So I'm hoping that if people, keep talking about it and at the very least, send an email to these teams, let them know like we still need this feature.
Right.
I think too, Microsoft is doing a great job with accessibility and keeping that in the forefront of devs' minds with their really great controllers and their different ways to allow people to play their games. So I hope that that'll keep it fresh in people's mind that this is still something a lot of people use.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's definitely a mode that I don't want to see totally go away, even though it's not something I use myself. And it's good to keep in mind that when we think about like, well, nobody plays couch co-op anymore, or nobody needs split screen. It's good to keep in mind instances like this, although they may be few and far between. There are people who just aren't going to play on their own console or their own TV, and so it's good. It's a good thing to keep in mind for the industry as a whole, I think. So, Micah, do you have anything else about Vanguard that you want to talk about that we didn't cover?
I think we hit all the points here. Overall, I enjoy the game. It is saved by the multiplayer for sure. The campaign, I would say, was okay. The zombies, for me, is bad. The zombies is objectively bad for me. But I'll say the multiplayer for this game has been fantastic, and I'll be playing more of it today.
Nice. Yeah, as someone who was not expecting much at all from it, just because of some of the preview stuff and everything, I would agree. It's better than I thought it was going to be. It's still not my favorite Call of Duty ever, but it's certainly not as bad as I expected it to be. The last thing I wanted to say, this is Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. Micah, what system did you play the game on?
I played it on Xbox Series X.
And I played it on PC. So we scammed everybody. Screw you guys. We infiltrated the PlayStation podcast. We were going to have Chris, who I think played it on PlayStation, but he wasn't able to make it. He wasn't able to make it through the game, frankly. So he had too much other stuff going on. And I think that everybody else kind of bailed on Call of Duty this year, which, can't blame people. Need to take a break every now and then. So, well, thanks for doing the show with me, Micah. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you listening, again, if you're not a patron, make sure to go over to patreon.com/laststandmedia, sign up to get ad-free early access, hear more Spoilercast, hear more shows that you can only hear if you're a patron. And I guess that's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.